I know you took it, Maya. Don't pretend to be innocent.
The accusation came like thunder, abrupt, accusing, irreversible. Maya Williams stood in the hallway of the Monroe estate, just outside Chloe's bedroom, holding a bottle of wood polish in one hand and a dusting cloth in the other. The scent of citrus oil still clung to her fingertips. Her heart thudded in her chest. "I'm sorry," she asked, though she'd heard every poisonous word.
You heard me. Chloe Monroe snapped, stepping out of the doorway, her manicured finger pointing inches from Maya's face. The bracelet is gone. The diamond heirloom my grandmother gave me. And you?
You're the only one who was in my room today.
Don't play dumb. I didn't take anything.
Maya said quickly, her voice shaking but clear. I cleaned the windows, dusted the bookshelf.
I never even touched your dresser.
Oh, shut up. Chloe barked, voice sharp as shattered glass. You always look at things like they belong to you, like this house is yours, but you're not part of this family.
You're a maid, a thief. Maya took a cautious step back. Miss Chloe, please. I would never.
Suddenly, Chloe shoved her. The polish bottle clattered to the hardwood floor. Maya stumbled back against the hallway wall, eyes wide.
Stunned.
Her shoulder ached where it had struck the molding. She straightened slowly, biting her lip, trying to keep her composure.
Get out, Chloe screamed.
Before I call the cops myself.
Maya swallowed hard. I swear to you, I didn't steal anything. I've worked here for years. Ask anyone.
By now, the noise had drawn the attention of the household. Sarah Monroe, elegant as ever in a pale silk robe, hurried up the stairs. Charles Monroe, tall and serious in his weekend sweater, followed close behind.
What's going on? Charles demanded.
She stole my bracelet, Chloe cried. Tears of rage now glistening in her eyes.
The one Grandma gave me. It's gone. I left it on my dresser and now it's missing. She pushed me, Maya said quietly. I was just trying to explain. Are you serious? Sarah asked, voice tight with disbelief. Chloe, did you put the bracelet somewhere else? I didn't. It was right there this morning. She's the only one who went into my room.
Charles turned to Maya, expression unreadable.
Did you take it, Maya? No, sir. I would never.
Her voice cracked despite her best efforts.
I love this job. I depend on this job.
Lisa, the cook, and Harold, the groundskeeper, had also arrived at the edge of the hall. They said nothing, but their eyes followed every word. Every twitch of Chloe's mouth, every tear trembling on Maya's face. She's lying, Chloe hissed.
And she's probably already hidden it somewhere.
She needs to be searched.
Don't let her leave. I'm not running, Maya said, shocked. Why would I?
But even as she tried to step past, Charles lifted a hand.
I think it's best if you stay right here, Maya. Until we get to the bottom of this. You think I'd steal something and stay?
She asked, her voice hollow.
You think I'd take anything and then keep dusting your china? We just need to be sure, Sarah said gently but firmly.
Please don't make this harder than it already is.
Maya turned in a slow circle, realizing she was surrounded.
People she had served tea to, pressed shirts for, arranged flowers for, all now watching her like a cornered animal. A tear slid down her cheek. I'd been here every day, every morning, every weekend, cleaning, ironing, cooking when Lisa was sick.
This is how you thank me.
No one's accusing, Charles began.
But Chloe interrupted. Yes, I am accusing.
And if you don't want to believe me, check the hallway cam. She was in my room exactly when I said.
Sarah looked uncertain. Chloe, you have a camera in your room? Just a small one. I installed it myself. For safety.
Charles sighed. We'll check it, but until then, Maya, you stay. If you leave now, it will look suspicious. Maya folded her arms, then lowered them again. Her dignity battled with her disbelief. Her voice shook.
You don't want the truth. You want someone to blame. You don't get to talk to us that way, Chloe snapped. Not when you're the one stealing from us.
Enough, Chloe, Sarah said quietly. Maya turned to Lisa, who stood silently by the stairwell.
Tell them. Tell them I'd never do this. Lisa looked down. That silence hurt more than Chloe's shove. Maya's shoulders slumped.
Fine, she said softly. I'll stay, but not because I'm guilty.
Because walking out of here would give you more reason to bury me. No one replied.
As she sat on the bottom step, hands clenched in her lap, Maya whispered to herself, they never saw me, just the story they wanted to see. And for the first time in years, a house she helped keep shining felt like a prison. The room was too quiet for a house so large.
Maya sat stiffly at the edge of the living room couch.
Her hands folded tightly in her lap. Outside, the sun continued shining over Atlanta, Georgia, casting long shadows through the grand windows of the Monroe estate. Birds chirped softly from the oak trees beyond the wrought iron gates. But inside, time had stopped. She could feel their eyes on her, watching her every breath, every twitch of her fingers. Even Lisa, the cook she'd laughed with in the kitchen only a week ago, now lingered in the corner like an unpaid guard. The Monroes hadn't called the police yet, but they had made one thing clear.
Maya was not to leave the house.
I'll get the security feed, Charles said, breaking the silence. He moved toward his office in the back of the house, his steps heavy with discomfort. Sarah sat across from Maya, trying to appear calm.
You understand, don't you, Maya? We just need to clarify everything before anything escalates. Maya nodded, numb. Of course, ma'am. I want the truth to come out more than anyone.
Chloe stood near the fireplace, arms crossed. Her expression was a mixture of anger and satisfaction. We wouldn't even be in this situation if you had just admitted it, she muttered.
Maya looked at her and for a brief second felt a hot surge of something she rarely allowed herself rage.
I told you the truth, Maya said softly.
You just didn't want to believe it.
Chloe scoffed, turning her back.
Sarah cleared her throat. Let's not escalate further. Maya looked up at the grand portrait above the mantel.
Charles Monroe painted in oil, smiling with polished pride, arms around his daughter and wife, sunlight flooding the background. It was all so curated, so clean.
No one had ever thought to hang a photo of the help. No one had ever framed Maya. 10 minutes passed. Then 20.
Charles returned, face tight.
The feed only shows hallway footage. Maya entered the room around 10:12 and exited at 10:29.
Chloe entered at 10:45 and discovered the bracelet missing at 10:52.
Exactly. Chloe said. She was alone in my room for 17 minutes.
And you're sure the bracelet was there this morning? Charles asked. I was wearing it at breakfast, Chloe said. I took it off to shower. I always leave it on the top left corner of my dresser.
You mean where your perfume bottles are? Sarah asked gently.
Yes.
Any chance it got knocked over? Fallen behind something?
Chloe's voice rose.
No, Mom. I'm not a child. I know where I put my things. Maya stood with respect. Mr. Monroe. Mrs. Monroe. I'd like to go now. You've reviewed the camera.
You have my word.
I've done nothing wrong. Sarah hesitated. We just need a little more time. Maya blinked. To do what? Tear apart my belongings?
No one said that, Charles replied, raising a hand.
Then what exactly am I waiting for? Maya asked, her voice finally rising, trembling with suppressed heat.
You think if you stall long enough, I'll break down and confess something I didn't do.
Chloe took a step toward her.
Maybe if you had something to lose, you wouldn't be so smug. I've already lost everything, Maya said, voice low. This job was my stability, my way of keeping my brother in school, my rent, my bills, my whole sense of peace.
Do you know what it feels like to be accused and not believed? Be judged by your skin, your silence, your salary? If you felt Maya's pain too, give her a like and don't forget to comment where you are watching from. Someone near you might be watching this video too. Maya, Sarah began, but Maya cut in. You don't get to calm this down now. You let her call me a thief. You watched while she pushed me. And now you want to quietly resolve things. The front door opened. Everyone turned. Harold, the groundskeeper, stood in the foyer holding a box of tools. He paused, noticing the tension. Sorry, he said. Didn't mean to interrupt. No, come in, Charles said quickly. Actually, Harold, have you seen anything unusual this morning? Anything missing? Anyone around the house who doesn't belong? Harold shook his head. No, sir. Everything looked normal when I made my rounds. Gates closed. No visitors. Chloe's arms tightened. Then it has to be her. Maya clenched her jaw, then walked slowly to her quarters, escorted by Lisa, who avoided eye contact the whole way. Inside, Maya sat on her bed and stared at the tiny crack in the ceiling above. She thought of Malik, probably still at school, texting her about math homework. She thought of her mother, who used to say, "Don't ever let them decide who you are." In her duffel bag, nothing but folded clothes, an old notebook, her worn Bible, and a framed picture of her and Malik at the zoo, grinning, innocent. A soft knock. Lisa stepped in. I brought you a sandwich, turkey, and coleslaw. Figured you might be hungry. Maya nodded, but didn't reach for it. Thanks. Lisa stood awkwardly. I don't believe it. You know what Chloe's saying. But this family, they circle the wagons when something's at stake. They protect their own. I used to think I was part of that circle, Maya murmured. Lisa sighed, then left. The sandwich sat untouched on the desk. Maya picked up her notebook and wrote something on the first page. If no one remembers your side of the story, you better learn how to write it yourself. Outside, the sun dipped lower. And inside that grand estate, Maya wasn't just a maid anymore. She was a prisoner of suspicion, awaiting either a miracle or her undoing. Night fell like a heavy curtain over the Monroe estate. Maya sat motionless by the window of her quarters, staring out at the moonlit garden she once pruned every Friday morning. The tulips were blooming rich red and deep gold colors she had planted herself last fall. Kneeling in the damp soil with fingers numb from the cold, she remembered how proud Sarah Monroe had been that day. You have a gift with beauty, Sarah had said, sipping tea beside her. That memory now felt like a postcard from a stranger. The turkey sandwich still sat on her desk, untouched. Her phone buzzed for the third time. Malik again. Malik. 7:14 p.m. Sis, are you okay? They're saying things on local news. Malik 7:19 p.m. Did you really take it? Please tell me you didn't. Maya's fingers hovered over the screen, but she couldn't bring herself to type a reply. What was she supposed to say? That the truth no longer mattered when suspicion had already taken root. That her name was no longer hers. But a question whispered behind closed doors. There was a knock, a firm one. Maya, Charles's voice called from behind the door. We need to talk. She opened it slowly. Charles stepped inside, followed by Sarah. Chloe trailed behind them, arms crossed. We've searched your room, Charles said flatly. With your absence, Maya's stomach dropped. Without asking me. You had nothing to hide, right? Chloe interjected. Sarah looked pained. We didn't find the bracelet. Maya swallowed, fists clenching. So now what? Am I free to go? We need to ask you some questions, Charles continued. Voice lawyer smooth. We noticed a missing USB drive from the home office. It's encrypted. It may contain sensitive family information. It was last seen yesterday. Maya's mouth parted in disbelief. You're accusing me again. No one's accusing you, Sarah said quickly. We just want to rule things out. This is becoming harassment, Maya said, voice rising. You've locked me inside this house. You've searched my belongings without permission and now you're stacking more accusations like bricks on my back. Chloe stepped forward, rage burning in her. Just admit it already. You probably pawned off this afternoon. That's why you wanted to leave so fast.
I wanted to leave because your words cut deeper than knives.
Maya shot back. Because no one here sees me anymore.
Just a black girl with a broom in her hand and pockets they think are always too full.
The room went still. Charles looked away. Sarah whispered. We'll check the outside security footage next. Do what you have to, Maya said. But I'm done explaining my innocence.
She turned back toward her bed, shoulders squared, tears blurring her vision.
Sarah hesitated before leaving. We'll talk in the morning. Maya didn't respond.
Once alone, she reached for her Bible, opened it at random, and let her finger fall on a verse.
Isaiah 54 verse 17. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. She exhaled slowly. Hours passed.
Maya lay awake, listening to the creaks of the old estate, the hushed tones of the Monroes talking in the kitchen below. Her thoughts spun like a dryer stuck on high memories of trust, now sour and cracked. Near midnight, she heard a knock again.
This time it was gentler. Lisa peeked in. Can't sleep. No, Maya murmured. Lisa entered holding 2 cups of peppermint tea. She handed one to Maya. They searched your stuff, Lisa said, voice low. Even lifted your mattress. I figured they didn't find anything. I know. Lisa sighed. I've worked here 15 years.
I've seen accusations come and go, but this feels uglier.
Maya stared into her cup. You didn't say anything earlier. Lisa nodded slowly. It's hard speaking up against this family. It doesn't come without consequences. Maya looked at her. So, what do you do? Me? Lisa smiled faintly. I survive. A long silence. Then Maya asked. Would you believe me if I told you I still want to forgive them? Lisa studied her. I would. Maya finished her tea in silence.
When Lisa left, she sat alone again. But something had shifted inside her.
The sadness hadn't disappeared, but it had rearranged itself into a quiet kind of strength. She picked up her notebook and scribbled. Truth isn't a shield that keeps the world from wounding you. It's the seed you plant when the world wants to bury you. She turned off the lamp and lay down. The next morning came faster than she expected.
Charles knocked on her door just past 7. His voice was quieter this time.
We reviewed the front gate footage. You never left the property. Of course not, Maya replied. I told you I didn't.
Charles rubbed the back of his neck.
I'll be honest. The police suggested a polygraph just to clarify things. Maya looked at him steadily. I'll take it. Will Chloe? He didn't answer.
Instead, he said, there's something else. A technician, Louise, one of the guys who helped fix the lighting system 2 weeks ago.
He might have installed a test camera in Chloe's room by accident.
Maya raised her eyebrows.
By accident?
I don't know yet, but I'm going to call him.
Maya didn't say anything, but inside a flicker of something stirred. A camera in Chloe's room.
Maybe, just maybe, the house had been watching the whole time. Not just Maya, but the truth itself, waiting for its turn to speak.
Luis Alvarez hadn't expected to hear from Charles Monroe again. Not after the last job.
Not after he installed emergency lighting and checked some faulty wall panels in the guest wing. So, when his phone lit up with Charles M. Monroe residence, he hesitated before answering.
Luis here, he said cautiously. Luis, it's Charles Monroe. I need to ask you something rather unusual.
I'll do my best, Luis replied, sliding his wrench into his tool bag as he stood beside a utility pole in suburban Decatur.
Do you remember installing a temporary cam in my daughter's room? Louise frowned. Yeah.
During the power issue, I placed it just to monitor voltage fluctuations. It was meant to be removed later.
Forgot all about it. Is it still recording? Louise paused.
Might be if no one unplugged it.
We need the footage today. Louise sensed the tension behind the calm voice. I'll be there in 40 minutes.
Back at the Monroe estate, Maya sat in the kitchen, finally allowed to move freely, though the unspoken suspicion still lingered like the aftertaste of bitter coffee.
Sarah had offered breakfast. Maya declined.
She had no appetite for polite gestures after everything.
Chloe wasn't speaking to anyone.
She'd retreated into her room since the polygraph suggestion. Her pride, once towering, now sat cracked and hollow. Even Charles had started to look at her differently, squinting as though trying to see beyond the image he had painted of his daughter. When Louise arrived, he was met at the door by Harold and Lisa. Both relieved to see someone outside the family enter the scene. "I'll need access to the junction closet and the DVR," Louise said, polite but brisk.
"And no one touch anything until I'm done." Maya stood in the hallway as Louise climbed the stairs toward Chloe's room.
Charles followed silently, Sarah close behind.
"Do you think this will actually show something?" Sarah whispered.
"I don't know," Charles muttered. "But it's the first chance at clarity we've had."
Louise entered the bedroom methodically, pulling back the corner of a painting on the far wall.
Behind it, tucked into the wiring conduit, was the small black device no bigger than a matchbox.
"Still blinking." "Good news," Louise said. "It's on and it's been recording."
Downstairs, Maya waited, arms crossed, heart racing.
10 minutes passed, then 20.
Footsteps returned, measured, deliberate.
Charles descended first, holding a small portable monitor.
His face was pale.
"Maya," he said softly. "Come with me." He led her into the study. Sarah followed. Chloe didn't. Louise set up the monitor on the table and hit play. There it was. The feed began with Maya entering Chloe's room at 10:12 a.m. She dusted the shelves, fluffed pillows, opened a window.
Her movements were fluid, methodical. At 10:29, she exited, leaving everything untouched.
At 10:45, Chloe entered. She was holding her phone, laughing about something.
Then she walked straight to the dresser, took off the bracelet, and looking around, lifted her gym bag and slid the bracelet inside. Then she walked to the hallway and screamed.
Maya's breath caught in her throat.
She looked at Charles, then Sarah. Neither of them said a word.
Louise paused the video.
The room pulsed with silence.
Sarah began, but her voice broke.
She placed her hand over her mouth. Charles leaned back in his chair.
"My God," he said. "She lied to all of us." Maya didn't speak. She couldn't.
Her heart was beating too loudly in her chest.
Not out of triumph,
but from the sharp sting of what could never be undone. Charles turned to her.
"I don't know what to say." "I'm sorry" doesn't begin to cover it.
"No," Maya whispered.
"It doesn't." Sarah moved closer. "Maya, please. We didn't know. If we had, you would have believed me."
Maya's voice was calm, but deadly still.
"Or would you have still searched my things first, kept me from leaving, made me feel like I was something less?" Sarah flinched.
"I was guilty the moment she said my name,"
Maya said. That was enough.
Outside the study, Chloe's voice rang out, shrill and defensive.
"That video is misleading. I wasn't stealing it. I was moving it for safekeeping." Charles opened the door. "Enough, Chloe."
"No, she's twisting everything. She made herself look innocent."
Louise raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, it's a straight recording. There's no audio trick. No cuts. That bracelet didn't walk into your gym bag on its own." Sarah stood between them. Chloe, you lied.
You humiliated someone who served this family with more grace than we deserved. Chloe's eyes brimmed with tears, but they weren't the right kind.
They weren't from guilt.
They were from the collapse of her image.
Maya stepped past them all.
She walked out onto the front porch, took in the clean morning air. It smelled of fresh pine and spring dew, but to her, it still reeked of betrayal. Behind her, the family murmured, arguing now, no longer in control of the narrative.
Lisa stepped outside, holding Maya's duffel bag. They asked me to give this to you. Maya took it in silence. Lisa hesitated. Do you want a ride?
I'll drive.
No, Maya said.
I've walked out of worse places than this.
She stepped down the front steps, each one quieter than the last.
As she reached the gate, she paused, then turned back just once, not to forgive, not to forget, but to remember, so she would never have to return. And as the gate closed behind her, the silence left inside was no longer Maya's burden.
It belonged to them. Maya didn't cry as she walked away from the Monroe estate. She didn't stumble, didn't look back again.
The iron gate clicked shut behind her with the finality of a slammed courtroom gavel. Each step she took down the long tree-lined sidewalk was a step away from humiliation, from doubt, from the lies they chose over her truth. The late morning sun warmed her shoulders.
Spring was alive in Atlanta.
Blooms spilled over front porches. Wind chimes danced lazily in the breeze, and the scent of cut grass clung to the air. A world too bright for the storm she still carried inside. She reached the end of the block and stood at the bus stop. Duffel bag slung over one shoulder. Her hands were still trembling. The truth had come out. The camera had vindicated her, but somehow it didn't feel like justice. Justice was late. Justice had required evidence, not her word. Justice hadn't stopped them from calling her a thief. Hadn't stopped Chloe from pushing her. Hadn't stopped them from searching her room like she was a criminal. As the bus arrived, Maya climbed aboard, dropped into a seat near the back, and rested her head against the cool windowpane. Across the aisle, a woman in a bright yellow dress nodded at her.
Maya offered a tired smile in return.
She wasn't sure where she was going, just away. Back at her modest apartment in East Point, she dropped her duffel on the couch and let out a long breath. The silence of her own space welcomed her like an old friend. She opened a window, let the spring air cleanse the stale tension from her lungs.
Malik would be home from school soon.
She picked up her phone, which had been vibrating nonstop.
Dozens of texts and voicemails blinked on the screen. Lisa, they're shaken. Chloe's locked in her room. Sarah asked if she could speak with you. I told her you needed time. Louise, glad the footage helped. Hope you're okay. Let me know if you need anything.
Reverend Thomas, Maya, call me.
The Lord hears, but so do people, and they're listening now. She finally opened Malik's message. Malik, 2:41 p.m. Just saw the video. Sis, I'm so proud of you. I never doubted. Come home.
She smiled faintly. That evening, she stood at the kitchen stove, stirring a pot of chile, her mother's recipe, full of spice and warmth. When Malik walked through the door, backpack sagging from one shoulder, he dropped it and ran straight into her arms.
You okay?
He asked, voice muffled in her sweater. I am now, she said, stroking his hair. He pulled back and grinned.
You are all over the news. Everyone's talking about you like some kind of legend.
I don't want to be a legend, she said, turning back to the pot.
I just wanted to be heard. Well, they're listening now.
They ate dinner at the small table beneath the framed photo of their mother. The flickering light above cast soft shadows, and for the first time in days, Maya felt something like peace. Later that night, she sat with Reverend Thomas at the community center on Auburn Avenue.
It was a modest building painted warm yellow with a large oak tree in the front yard and kids playing basketball out back. Inside, photos of neighborhood volunteers lined the walls. Ordinary people who'd made extraordinary impact.
She lied, Maya said, staring down at the cup of tea in her hands. But they all believed her without a second thought. Thomas nodded, his weathered face patient. People believe comfort before they believe character, especially when the comfort is white and pretty.
Maya looked up.
She was their daughter, but that didn't mean she was right.
And you were their help, but that didn't mean you were wrong.
I'm tired, she admitted.
You're allowed to be tired, but you're not done. She raised an eyebrow. You stood tall in a house designed to keep you small. Now the world knows who you are. The question is, what do you want to do with that voice?
Maya leaned back in her chair.
I want to use it.
Not for revenge, but for restoration.
Reverend Thomas smiled. Then you already know what comes next.
The following week, Maya wrote an open letter and submitted it to a local podcast series focused on truth and justice in working-class communities.
The host, a woman named Deja Harris, contacted her immediately.
I read your story, Deja said. It's powerful, but it's your voice how you hold your anger with such grace that makes it unforgettable.
We'd love to feature you.
And so Maya spoke not just of the false accusation, but of the broader wound.
How workers were treated as invisible until someone needed someone to blame.
How being honest wasn't enough when the world chose appearances over integrity. How too often truth had to shout just to be heard at all.
The episode aired and went viral. Messages poured in from all over the country. This could have been my sister. Maya, thank you for speaking when I couldn't. I was a Chloe. Thank you for helping me see that. The Monroes released a formal apology.
It was careful, written by PR consultants and posted on social media.
Chloe's name faded from headlines as quickly as it had risen. But Maya's story didn't fade. It rooted. It became a conversation.
And though Maya returned to work soon after at a local community arts center, helping young girls find confidence through storytelling, she carried with her a deeper clarity. She hadn't just walked out of the Monroe house. She had walked into herself. And now her steps had meaning. Not because they were seen, but because she had made them matter. It started as a whisper, then a ripple, then something larger. By the end of the second week, Maya Williams had gone from the fired maid to a name spoken with admiration on front porches, in radio studios, across church pews, and in neighborhood schools.
She hadn't sought it. She hadn't planned it.
But when she had spoken her truth on that podcast, her voice low, steady, deliberate, it had struck a chord far deeper than she ever imagined. Deja Harris's inbox flooded with letters from housekeepers, janitors, security guards, and nannies. Women who'd been accused of things they hadn't done, men who'd been dismissed without explanation, people who had given years of loyalty and silence and left without even a thank you.
Maya didn't just represent herself.
She had become something symbolic, a mirror, a warning, a light. One morning, as she arrived at the community arts center where she now worked, Maya found a note taped to the front door. Your story made me pull my daughter out of a toxic job before it broke her spirit.
Thank you.
Inside, the space buzzed with energy.
A converted former library.
The center had murals on every wall, bookshelves full of donated novels, and classrooms where girls as young as 6 were learning to write, speak, and lead. Maya, a girl named Kay, called from across the main room.
Can I read you my new poem today? Of course, Maya smiled.
Kay, 9 years old with wild curly hair and a notebook covered in stickers, stood proudly at the front of the room. Her voice rang with clarity. They said I was too loud, too black, too bold. But I think bold is what they fear because bold means I won't fold.
Maya clapped, tears pricking her eyes.
Later that afternoon, while helping organize a community book drive, Maya received a phone call from an unknown number.
She hesitated, then answered. Miss Williams, a professional voice said, "This is Dr. Henrietta Moss. I'm the director of the Georgia Social Justice Foundation. I'd like to meet you." About what? Maya asked cautiously. About your story and about a role we think only you can fill. They met the next day over coffee at a modest cafe in downtown Atlanta.
Dr. Moss, a woman in her early 60s with silver braids and sharp eyes, listened more than she spoke. She let Maya talk about the Monroe family, about Chloe, about being held in a house like a suspect, about the silence that hurt more than the accusation itself. When Maya finished, Dr. Moss leaned forward. "We have a fellowship," she said. "One focused on workplace dignity and racial equity. It's designed for people like you who didn't wait for justice to arrive, but became the vehicle for it. We want you to join." Maya stared at her. "Me? I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an academic. I was a housekeeper." Dr. Moss smiled. "That's exactly why your voice matters. The system already has plenty of experts. What it needs is authenticity." Maya didn't answer right away. She needed time. That evening, she sat on the fire escape outside her apartment, watching the city lights shimmer like quiet possibilities. Malik sat beside her, legs swinging. "Do it," he said. "No hesitation." "You don't even know what it is," Maya teased. "I don't have to," he shrugged. "You've always made things better for me, for yourself. Now you get to do it for others." Maya looked at him. The kid who once cried when his shoes had holes, who once whispered to her, "I hope I grow up to be good like you." He was growing up now. And so was she. 3 weeks later, Maya accepted the fellowship. Her days became a blend of policy meetings, storytelling workshops, and community forums. She wasn't trying to be anyone's hero. She just kept showing up, listening, sharing, challenging. One forum in particular stayed with her. A panel on truth in the shadows, stories from the silenced. Maya stood on a modest stage in a gymnasium, speaking alongside a woman wrongfully fired from a hospital, and a young man who'd been racially profiled at a retail store. The room was packed: elders in folding chairs, teenagers with notebooks, activists with signs. When it was her turn, Maya stepped to the mic. "I didn't lose my job because I made a mistake," she began. "I lost it because someone chose to believe a lie that fit their comfort better than my truth." And the people around her stayed quiet. Not because they hated me, but because they didn't see me. She paused. "I was background noise in a house I helped keep running until they needed someone to blame." She looked up straight into the audience. "But silence is a choice, and so is dignity. I chose to leave with mine." When she stepped off stage, hands reached out for hers. Some to thank her, some to simply touch her shoulder as if to say, "I know. I've been there." That night, as she climbed into bed, Maya opened her notebook and wrote, "They tried to make me invisible. But now, I know how to glow." And though the path ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear. She would never again let her light be dimmed by someone else's blindness. Spring had turned into early summer, and Atlanta breathed heavier under the sun. The sidewalk shimmered. Windows stayed cracked open with the hum of ceiling fans spinning above old kitchen tables. Maya Williams moved through these weeks with a steadiness that came not from peace but from purpose. The fellowship consumed her days, workshops, meetings, speaking engagements, but it didn't feel like work. It felt like breathing, like waking up each day and finally having space to exist as more than someone's quiet help. Her words were no longer confined to private notebooks or whispered prayers. They traveled. But sometimes when Maya walked past a mirror or caught her reflection in a passing window, she still saw that moment: Chloe Monroe's voice sharp as a knife. "You're a thief." That day clung to her. Even now, one Tuesday afternoon, she received a letter in the mail. Real paper, handwritten. The envelope bore the neat cursive of someone who had once lived behind white fences and gated driveways. "Dear Maya, we owe you more than an apology. We owe you the truth we were too afraid to face. I failed as a mother. And worse, I failed as a woman who should have stood by another woman. If you can, please meet me. One time, no cameras, no press. Sarah Monroe." Maya stared at the letter for a long time. She ran her fingers over the soft ridges of ink pressed into the paper. It didn't make her angry. It didn't make her forgive, but it made her wonder. 3 days later, she stood in front of the Monroe estate again. Nothing had changed. The hedges were perfectly trimmed. The windows sparkled. The brick path was free of weeds. But the house looked smaller than she remembered, less like a fortress and more like a lie that had collapsed in on itself.
Sarah